Well, hello there people from the internet, and welcome back to some Battlefield 4. Now today we're talking about the reveal of Battlefield 1. It looks like we're going back to the first war, and it's going to be mustard gas, there's going to be trench warfare, it's going to be tanks, it's going to be biplanes, it's going to be melee weapons, shovels, cavalry, and all sorts of good stuff. Now, a couple of months back, I talked about the possibility, it was around March, I talked about the possibility of a battlefield being set in the First War. Would it work, and what kind of vehicles would they use? Because, as I mentioned in that one, tanks weren't really that advanced back in those days. I mean, 1915, there was the first tank that came into service. Then you had basically 8-man crew to a tank, and it's kind of slow. So I'm kind of wondering what they go in and how they go in about this. Because they mentioned a couple of things on the stream that they're going to do sort of their own take on tanks and other vehicles that they have. We know there was biplanes in the First War. We know they used all sorts of gadgets and all sorts of weapons, and they used mustard gas. But I'm really interested to see how will they go about bringing the LMGs, the snipers, the scopes, the muzzle brakes, the sort of flashes, the muzzle flash, and all those fancy attachments that you're kind of used to these days. Now, it's going to be really interesting to see, and unfortunately we didn't really get to see any multiplayer, but it looks like most of the things that you'll see in the sort of story side of the game is going to be making its way into the multiplayer. Now, I've been invited to London on it's June the 12th to actually play the game at EA Play, so I'm going to be going there and I'm going to be playing it, and I'll be bringing you back some footage from the actual game and see what that's all about and what it looks like.
Come on then!
Now, we did get to see quite a little bit in that trailer, and we can take it apart and pick at it and find a couple of things. But one of the things that I find interesting, that in the scene with the gas, which is this one, now that weapon does look to me like the Lewis gun. I first thought it's actually the DP-28, which is a Russian weapon, but a closer inspection, it does turn out to be the Lewis gun, and that's going to be pretty cool to use because it's a light machine gun. Now, we know that the game has a 64-player madness. We know it's got tanks, biplanes, horses, bayonets, flamethrowers, but also in the single-player campaign, we know that we're going to go to France, we're going to go to Italy and Arabia, and if that DP-28 is anything that I believe it is, maybe even Russia.
Move forward! Get ready, man! Get down!
Now, in the last segment of the game, we did get to see just a little bit more of the vehicles. We get to see that huge Zeppelin right at the end, so I'm really curious how that's going to work, because it's probably going to take a huge amount of manpower to get that going. Or I think that's going to be something like the ATs in Battlefront. Is probably going to be on rails or something like that, but it's still going to be cool as hell for you to man that and just sort of bring down the rain from the above sky. Like you do in the C-130 and like you do in most of the other sort of railed vehicles, if you want to put them that way, in Battlefield. So it's going to be pretty cool. We get to see a tank a little bit. They mentioned that they're going to have light tanks, they're going to have heavy tanks, and also you could see there was a heavy in the previous parts of the gameplay, which is basically an armored guy just mowing down. It's basically he's wearing a suit of armor, which is pretty cool. So he's just mowing down whole squads there. And they also mentioned there's going to be sort of bayonet warfare, where you can literally charge in and you can melee somebody with a club or a mace or a shovel or something like that. But you can also just charge him and point a stick at him, as it were, like you did basically back in 1943. If you remember, for those of you that played 1943, it was only on the consoles, it wasn't on the PC. But you could literally go up as the Japanese. You had a sword that you could just use the katana to mow people down, and that was fun as hell. But you also had the option, by us playing as the US, you had a bayonet fixed to the top of your rifle, which you can just go in and just poke somebody with it, and you'd get the kill for it. And that was pretty cool. And you used to use that to break down the fences when you're trying to break through. So there's a lot of information that comes out of that trailer. We will be, personally, I will be picking it apart, and I'll be making another video letting you know some of the things that you might have missed, some of the things you don't know. There's a lot of people out there that have not really played the whole of the Battlefields out there, so maybe there's a couple of things that you'll find that you've missed since you've only played a couple of them. But it's still going to be pretty interesting to see what the multiplayer is going to be, because that's really what Battlefield games is all about. Don't get me wrong, the campaign does look sweet, but I think multiplayer is the way to go. And I think if they implement VR on the biplanes and everything like that with today's graphics and the Frostbite engine, I think that's just going to look sweet as hell. We only have to wait another month or so, so June the 12th is going to be when we get to play the game, and I'll be able to bring back some footage. But also, we'd like to see the 5 ways to kill a sniper's return, you know, with horses charging snipers and sticking people with the bayonets, and I think that's just going to be amazing. We're going to have a lot of laughs in that game, and we know it's going to be released on October the 21st actually, but you can get it a couple of days early if you pre-order some sort of version of the game anyway. So that's it for me for today. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments if you're excited for this. I know a lot of you wanted to see Bad Company 3, and you wanted to see maybe a Battlefield 1944. Personally, I kind of wanted a 1944 too, just because of the technology. Everything was a little bit more advanced by the Second War, and you could have a bit more sort of options and possibilities. But this looks fun as hell, and I can't wait to play it on June the 12th. That's it for me for today. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the video. You'll have to let me know in the comments below what you think about the game so far. Are you really enjoying the trailer? Have you picked at it a little bit? Is there a couple of things that you've spotted? And that's that. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up, and I will see you guys in the next one.